switch here, it should also stream that to YouTube. Let's wait for that.
Yeah, it's live for me right now.
Okay, cool. So it should be streamed to YouTube and it should be on Discord. And
yeah, I think, but it doesn't matter. The only difference is that you don't have your camera on Discord.
Oh yeah, true. Okay, let's do that manually then. Okay, I think it should work for everything. So, yeah, great, thanks Sarah. I also have it like in a window, but I don't know if I can read two chats. So yeah, hello everyone. Today in Talking Before Deploying, we will talk about Astro Sessions and the Cloudflare adapter. I would like to give you a quick recap for Astro Sessions. So Astro Sessions are used to share data between multiple requests, which are server-side rendered, and they are saved on the server. So as an example, we have the card button in our docs, which basically allows you to store a card server-side and then reuse that card across multiple devices or even multiple tabs. Normally, to use these sessions, you need to configure that with an adapter as well as a driver, and then you can use them in your Astro page. So you can use it in a component and on-demand pages. You can also use them in your API endpoints, like we show here in the docs, and you can use them in server actions as well as the middleware. Let's actually jump into an example. So if we look in the current Astro mono repository, we do have the Cloudflare adapter, and there is a test for sessions. So actually, I would like to take a look at this. So this test fixture basically builds an Astro project with sessions, and in this example, we do have the card, and I probably need to install packages to get rid of the errors here. And if we run this project, I will do this, we can actually see how the session works. Let me install everything first. It takes a little bit. To do. So, and then I will go into this specific folder. So, and basically on Astro Dev to run this project locally. And right now, if we go back to the browser and open that project, you see that we have the card page with the card shoe, and then I can add a shirt as well. And now if I reload that or open it in a new tab, the session stays in here and is basically shared. So this is how it works right now, and yeah, I would like to show you how it is implemented in the adapter, because the Cloudflare adapter configures this for you automatically. So if we go into the main index file for the adapter, you can see that we allow you to define a session KV binding name, because for Cloudflare the session normally needs some kind of key value store, and Cloudflare has the KV binding for that, so you need to configure a binding with the binding name. The default name is session, but you can configure that name here as well. And then if we go a little bit further down, basically we configure the session configuration for you if you don't have it configured yourself. So if we go back to the docs, sessions. So as you saw in the docs, you need to configure this in your Astro config file with the driver, and for Cloudflare it actually gives you the step-by-step guide to configure the KV namespace first, then to configure your Wrangler configuration file, and then you don't need to configure anything in the Astro config file because the adapter does this for you. So this is basically what we are looking at right now. So if there's no custom configuration, we do some default configuration, and right now the adapter is built in a way that for production it uses the Cloudflare KV binding, but for local development, so Astro Dev, we use a fallback to the file system. You can actually see this in the project if you go in the test fixture, and then under the .astro folder you have integrations, Astro Cloudflare sessions, and then you have this file, and here you see actually the session card with the shoe and the shirt I just added. But today we would like to try to use the Cloudflare platform proxy to basically implement this with the native KV binding locally as well, and we don't need to use the file system as a fallback anymore. To show you what the platform proxy does, basically, I will go back to the Cloudflare documentation. So developers, Cloudflare KV, I think, yeah. So let's talk about Cloudflare Workers KV a little bit. As we said before, Cloudflare Workers KV is a key value storage where you can put a value. I think it's normally a string or serializable type, so it can be an object as well under a specific key, and this is what Astro Session uses to save those session data pairs in the server. And KV basically is a remote binding, so when you deploy your site, you also have your KV namespace configured, and then it will use that during production. But also Cloudflare offers the platform proxy, which is an API for framework authors like Astro to basically polyfill all those native bindings for local development. This means that users, or we, don't have to change the code to access a binding. It's still the same API to access the binding. Let me go back to show you, like, it's still .put, .get, .list, so everything stays the same, but it will use the local version or local polyfilled version of the storage instead of the production storage. And we already implemented the platform proxy, and basically it allows you to be configured a little bit. It also allows you to use remote bindings. We will touch this later when we implemented it. But it also has a list of supported bindings. And as you see, KV namespace bindings is also supported by the platform proxies. So this is very helpful to know, because now we can implement this for the Astro session. So if we go back to the code, that basically means that, as I said, the API stays the same. That's something which works for the production, and is built means production because you build the project before you deploy it to Cloudflare. All the code which works for the production deployment will also work for local development using the platform proxy. And to show you how we use the platform proxy, let me quickly search for it. You see here we actually just get the platform proxy during the Astro server setup hook, which is basically the hook for the local development server. And then we will put this platform proxy into the runtime as well, so that we can access it as a binding. So now I would like to try to refactor this, and actually let's first look into the issue we have, or which is the issue we will work on today. So let me quickly go in here. Cloudflare. So this is the issue we will try to solve today, which is basically to replace the file system fallback for sessions. I can make it a little bit bigger, so that we use platform proxy bindings for the Astro dev command as well. And as Matt said here, he had some issues trying it initially, so we will see if it works now, or if there's like any other things we might need to fix. So if we go back to the logic here, and I will delete this Astro folder and also this Wrangler folder. As you see, you have the Wrangler folder with the state and KV. So for Cloudflare, you can choose to use or to save your KV bindings locally, similar to the file system fallback we have right now. But you can also use the experimental remote flag and use a remote KV binding and namespace, which I will show you in the end. So for now, what we want to see is a local file similar to the one I showed you before, which also includes the session. So I will also delete this folder to make sure we have a clean state. I will also delete the dist folder, so everything is like clean. I also need another terminal so that I can build the monorepository if something changes. And the first thing I will try is to basically remove all the conditional logic we have for the isBuild step. So we don't need the session directory anymore, because as I said, it will be the .wrangler state folder. The binding name can be the same, so this should be session. And I think the logging should be happening for both cases, but let's keep the logging for production only for now. And then I think it should be fine to just set the session So it should be this one, and now we should use the binding with the binding name. It would be session, and all the options the user configures. And now if we build this again, and try to run it, it should actually work the same as before. Maybe there's like some issues we have with the binding. So now get an error. Let's see what is. Oh, okay. I probably did. Okay, so we removed some code, and TypeScript is mad about us. So let's comment that out so that we can try this a little bit better also here. And obviously this needs to be cleaned, but let's do that for now. So now we built everything. The Cloudflare adapter is built, and then now that everything is built, we can run the dev server again. So now we don't have the session file in the Astro thing. We also don't have the session in the KV for now. So let's go back to the browser and try it out. So if we have this, so you have invalid binding session undefined. So let's go back to VS Code. Correct. So I think the issue here is, let's look at the Wrangler JSON file. Correct. So we define the binding with session, but we really don't define an ID. I'm pretty sure this needs to be an ID, but let's try it. Invalid binding session undefined. Okay, interesting. So let's do this in the index file, and let's do basically const test equals read Astro locals, I think, runtime env session put test. So let's see if we actually do have the get KV binding. If we can actually get the binding to work. So I will comment this out for now. I will rebuild everything and see if it is a binding issue or if it's an issue with it is built, it's not used, but the issue with how we use the Cloudflare KV binding driver here. I think it might be an issue with the binding itself, but okay, cool. Now it says undefined. Because I have a middleware, I need to remove the middleware as well. So rename middleware backup. Okay, cool. So now we have the project running again. If we go back in this one, we see here, correct, that we have the KV state locally with the ID. So basically the one I set in the Wrangler JSON 12345 is my folder name, and in production it might be a different ID. So Cloudflare gives you the ID in production, which you have to put in here. So we do have the binding, and we also know it works locally. So it works locally, it would also work in production. So now we need to figure out why it doesn't work with the KV binding solution here. So I think what I also have in here, so we have some yeah, so we have this one. So this is always the issue with Cloudflare, that bindings or environment variables are only available in the request scope and not globally. But what we do here is basically we set this specific variable. Let me see if we use it multiple times. No, we don't use it multiple times, but we set this variable to session so that later on we can access the session name. So let's go back in here and try to debug this a little bit more. So if we go and we enable this and rebuild the project, and we run it again, now let's see if it actually works now. So this works, and now the car page wouldn't work. So utils Cloudflare 911. I'm actually interested in that error. So okay, so let's try to actually get to this error. So this is unstorage drivers utils. So now we will go into probably some codes to figure out why this happens. Unstorage this or drivers utils Cloudflare. Correct, so it's this function, the get binding function, and basically we can like add some logging here. Binding should be binding without save. And now if we run it again, we will probably see, or I hope we will see, yeah. So the binding name is session, which is correct because our binding name is session. If it's a string, yeah, we would like to log this as well, but I think something like that. We try this. Okay, so we do have global this, and then we do have the session. Okay, so I think the global this is not set correctly. So if we go back in here, we have this global this, and this is a build step. So global this Astro session binding name is a build step. So this will not work in dev. So what I think we need to do is try to put this one in the dev server as well. Okay, so what happens if we do this? So now I'm trying to set the same value in the development step and actually try to see if that makes a difference. Okay, so now we do have the Astro session binding name set compared to before. Let me double check this. It was not set. So we have the session set, and then before it was not set. So this is actually correct. But then I think we still have the issue that env.astro that there is a different step needed here.
That's set in handle.ts in utils, the env value is.
Yeah, where do you mean?
If you go into utils in the same folder as
okay.
the one in there. Oh, you were right next to it. No, back up. Yeah, no,
yeah.
Just the one that's, yeah. And if you go to handler in there, you'll find it being set inside the actual handler, inside handle.
Oh yeah, true. Okay, cool. So
Kian is suggesting whether you asking if you can use importable env.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think, well, the question is, do we actually... So the handle is also a build thing, so this is not a dev thing as well. So env, correct, binding name. And env would be the environment. Okay, so we probably... So this is something we might need to refactor in effect so we can reuse it. So what should work is it should work to... So the binding name is this, correct? So basically this one. And then env would be the platform proxy env, correct? And we don't need that step. Okay, so this should work out. So and then now we see the issue with our dev and production build difference, because one is using this middleware setup and the other one is using an entry point, and we are actually planning to interesting. I might be wrong here, but let's do that. We're actually working on investigating the environment API, where you can use the Cloudflare worker endpoint directly without the two different setups. So I think this should work. Maybe I'm having some issue with like, okay, I'm doing like, cannot set property for undefined. Okay, because this is undefined. Okay, cool. Yeah, so it's this issue. Okay. and then this should work again. So yeah, we need to definitely, I need to build, or actually run the dev server to not build all the time, but we need to probably take this, like this custom logic for variables and environment out of the handler, put it in like a different place which can be reused for the platform proxy. Interesting. Okay, it is undefined, which is strange because it should not. But that's not a big deal. I think it's the way we handle strings right now. Okay, so the session is undefined, and I also, yeah, so it is session, and this is a KV namespace, so this one should be, so the binding name we have up here, where is it? Binding name. This one basically, so this one basically is what we need down there as well. So that should be probably global, or it should be a default actually. It actually should have a default. So this one should have a default value. Instead of having hard-coded default value here, we can refactor that afterwards. But let's try it out first. Okay, so this one should be just session. I don't think the stringify is needed. I even don't think the stringify is needed for the, maybe it is needed for unstorage, but for us it shouldn't be needed. So yeah, so now you see that we get the
it is, you should be removing the JSON stringify from both. The only
Yeah.
reason it was in the other one is because that's actually injecting it into the code. So that's what is quoting it. You don't need it there.
Correct. Yeah, that's a good point, that if you inject it, you need to wrap that, correct. So yeah, so now it works, and now if we go back to the browser to test it again, we add the shoe, we add the shirt, we actually open this in a new tab, we have the shoe shirt, and we do another test in here, and now if we go back to VS Code, we will see that it didn't add it into the Astro thing, but actually added it into the regular KV local polyfill. So for now, it's the same. It's a file similar to the file fallback we had before, but it's like already configured with Cloudflare. But the nice thing we can do now is that we can actually use a remote binding. So let me try to set this up, and I will put the pause screen on the YouTube. Okay, let's go back here. So we have the account ID, which we need, and we also make a new namespace here. and we call it Astro Sessions. Now we get this ID, and we need this in our Wrangler JSON. We also want to put experimental remote true. We need to make sure that we use the latest Wrangler version, which we should, and we also need the account ID in here. So that is this one. And then I think it is account ID. And then if we do that, so now I will remove the Wrangler state again so we can see that. It should be an experimental remote. Maybe I did something wrong. Let's see. Cloudflare platform proxy. So the usage or the syntax was experimental or remote bindings, and then it is experimental remote true. That's correct, but I think I didn't configure it in the Astro config. Yeah, so experimental remote bindings true. Experimental, I think it was that, right? Let's go back to the docs. Experimental remote bindings a boolean. Okay, so it doesn't like it, but that could be a type issue. Let's still try it. Maybe that's just an issue. I don't think it is an issue. No, it's not. Okay, it's not working yet. So why is it not taking the newest version? Workspace. It should. Let's go in the platform proxy. Platform proxy. Get platform proxy. Okay, this seems to be not the newest version of Wrangler then. So okay, let's see if what are the Wrangler versions in this project. Those are all okay. Let's bump this for a minute. In theory they should be bumped automatically, but I'm afraid that this is like some PNPM cache. Go clean up a little bit. Wrangler JSON index, that's our development, this is our project, and the Astro config also has the experimental true, and it seems to be better, but let's see. I also should be able to put the middleware back. And now if we build everything again and run it again, we should be able to use the remote bindings and not have the state in here, but have the state in the remote namespace. So that's something probably not everyone would like to do, but sometimes if you have something in production which you might want to use, you can use this feature now to actually use that. So now the card is empty. Now I add shoe, I add shirt as well, and then test. And then if I go to the dashboard, it's actually interesting that it looks like that I need to do a reload, but if I go to the KV storage now, I do see the session in my production key value storage and not in the local state anymore. And this is like, I think, a good upgrade to the experience, because now everyone can decide inside their JSON config if they want to use remote bindings at all, and then in the regular JSON which of the bindings they want to use remote for. So to clean it up a little bit, yeah, I think we can actually log this all the time and then just make this is built production and development, and then we have this okay, I don't get any format, document, restart, extension, we get this one configuration which works for development and production, and then we now don't need this anymore, we don't need this anymore, and we don't need the file path to anymore. And then I think this one is a workaround we need right now, because we don't have access to the workout environment. What we could do in the future is that so there is this let me show this in the docs for you. There is this Cloudflare import env bindings in the global scope. So there's this import env from Cloudflare workers, which also includes all the bindings, and this would be, in my opinion, the better approach to the global this injection. However, we cannot do this until we have the environment API built, because for that we need to run inside worker to have this virtual import available, and right now it is not available. That's why we use the platform proxy, which is basically just the polyfill for everything we need. Overall, this seems to be good. So yeah, I would add this for now in the server setup. We probably should make this handle a little bit more generic, because there might be other variables or bindings we need to set globally in the future. And then this looks like a good solution to improve it. So now let's, and obviously I didn't mention that, but the tests worked before and the tests work now as well. That's not because we actually test for the they actually should work. We can take a look if it's a cache issue, but they should work, because what we do for the because I probably have the remote in here. Wait, what if I remove the remote? Okay, yeah, I will debug it, but because we use the build. So we are testing the build behavior and we haven't touched the build behavior. So the test should work before and after. Okay, let's see what changes we actually have and what changes we need to add to a pull request to get a review. So yeah, I can also like get rid of this one. We don't need that change. Yeah, I will also not put my account ID and the ID. So this is something I'm not sure if we need to actually have an ID or if it would work with the placeholder. But this is also something which is for our test case specifically, because every user would have an ID configured. So let's not commit this. I would like to bump it. We don't need the remote bindings for our test case. I would also like to bump this. We can decide in the PR if we want to bump it. This import is not used anymore. We don't use the create codegen directory anymore. We have moved some of the logs as well as like the file system fallback, and we add the global this logic here.
Bug.
And that should also be in here, I think.
That shouldn't be hard coded as session. That should be using the
session binding name correct.
Yeah.
Name session correct. Yeah, again, I think I don't know how hard it is to actually have defaults for those arguments here, options. But I think would be great if we have like a default here. I know this is not valid syntax, but like a default here, and then we don't have to have this condition to check if the binding name is set or for all the places where we need it. Okay, so this is this is this. Okay, so this seems to be everything. Let's do an install again and actually make a quick PR to get CI checks running. So yeah, log file. I will not do the Wrangler update in the same PR. This is only needed for the remote connection if you want to use the remote connection, and if you install the newest version of Wrangler in your project as a user, you will get it. So this is only for our test case, and we will not use remote KV namespaces for tests, so that shouldn't be an issue. And let's look at this again. It doesn't look like it's formatted. Do we have like a format command in here? I haven't worked in the monopository for a long time. Format. npm format. Let's see if that actually works. Okay, some formatting changes in an unrelated file. Okay, cool. So now we have this file. So get switch refactor Cloudflare refactor Astro Session Cloudflare Astro Session Cloudflare KV locally. Git commit. Yeah, okay. Let's refactor Astro. You can't see this because it's like a or you in Discord can see it, but on YouTube you can't see it. It's just a new window for the commit message. Refactor Astro Sessions to use Cloudflare KV. And push. And now we would like to do a new PR. A change set is also needed. But replaces fallback to FS light with Cloudflare platform proxy, uses KV binding proxy stub by default, adds the option for the user to connect to production KV namespace with remote bindings. It's probably a good idea to develop platform cookies, platform proxy to add link to the remote bindings. Test should still pass since no new test is needed. So a new test could be, and we can have a look at the code in a second. Not needed bug fix. To see if we can build a test to make this testable. But I think the only way we could really test this would be to, if we go back to the fixture, to check for a file in this specific location, like does a file exist with specific content instead of the .astro location. But then again, we already have a test case for the build solution. So let's check the PR again to see the changes and to wrap this up. So again, what we did today was we replaced the file system fallback with the Cloudflare platform proxy solution, which uses a KV binding locally. By default, it is also a file, so the approach is very similar to the fallback we had. It's a file which saves like the content, but it also unblocks or also allows users to use a remote namespace to connect to production data, to test something out, or whatever the reason to do, or to connect to production data the user might have. And it also like makes sure we don't have any like different logic for dev if we start to move dev and production closer together. As you see, it's like a smaller change because Astro Session was built very flexible using iron storage, so we can use like the existing driver for the Cloudflare KV binding, and since the Cloudflare platform proxy uses the same API for all the local bindings, it is just a replacement for the production versions. This is everything I wanted to work on today. Do we have any questions I can answer? Do we have any questions about Astro Sessions, about the Cloudflare adapter, about the thing we did today? I think that makes sense to answer that. Let me see the chat. Yeah, correct. So the importable and I think I said this wouldn't work because we don't have the Cloudflare colon workers import in the node server. Basically, on our Astro Dev is a node server. So once we use the Cloudflare Vite plugin and have the environment API supported, we will definitely use this importable version. Very cool. Any other questions? Yeah, cool. You can definitely use the binding, like do something similar with Cloudflare KV yourself, but using the Astro Sessions is very cool because it does everything, and you can, as we said in the beginning, and I will probably end or wrap up with that, you can use it for pages, for middleware, for API endpoints, as well for like actions, and we have very good documentations around that. Alright, so very cool. Let's